Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the webinar today. It's a great day for a little education on our qTest platform. I'm very excited to bring you some new enhancements today. We're going to show you some new features of qTest 8.1. My name is Jeff Perkins. I'm the CMO of QASymphony, and we're coming to you live from Atlanta, Georgia today on a beautiful fall afternoon. So let's kick it off. I'm going to just go through a couple housekeeping slides, and then I'm going to hand it over to our presenters today to give you the product overview. A couple points about watching this webinar. This is very important. The audio for the webinar is delivered through your computer, so it's important that you either use a pair of headsets or you turn your speakers up. If the audio is choppy for some reason, you may want to move closer to a wireless router or try to change your internet connection. Usually it's the internet on your end. We're actually talking to a landline here in Atlanta. So our audio should be coming through very clearly. You are able to customize your webinar viewing experience. You'll see on the screen a variety of widgets. You see the presentation, a couple other widgets. You can increase the size, reduce the size of those widgets, or just minimize them if you want. And if you have questions, you'll see a widget that is on the right of the screen, and just go right into that widget and ask away. We will take questions towards the end. If you have technical issues, we also have staff on hand that will answer your questions, help you resolve any technical issues you might be having. If you're just having problems, a good strategy is just to refresh your browser. Generally, that solves most of the problems that we have. You can also switch browsers. So we find that Chrome or Firefox generally work best for this webinar software. Some of you may want to just watch the presentation in full screen mode. For that, there's a little icon in the upper right of the presentation widget. Just click on that and you can see it in full screen. Press escape to go back to the console where you can ask your questions. And so really the viewing experience is all in your hands. A couple other points before we get started. The webinar is being recorded, so you will get a link to watch it on demand. Sometimes you have to drop off halfway or you want to share with colleagues. You will be able to do that right after the webinar is over. We invite you to join the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag testautomation. We'll have people there that could answer your questions there and engage in dialogue. So feel free to use social media for this webinar. Again, use that Q&A widget, and at the very end of the webinar, if you stick around to the end, we're going to pop up a quick survey, just a couple questions, so you can tell us how we did on this webinar. We appreciate you taking the time to fill that out. Before we get started with this webinar, I want to talk to you about an upcoming webinar that's going to be next week that I think is going to be really interesting to some of you. We're bringing in our partners from Blueprint. Blueprint is a requirements management tool, and we're going to be talking about how to close that loop between requirements and testing. So we're excited to have Ruth Zive from Blueprint with us. And you can register for this webinar either on QASymphony.com's website or in our resources widget. There should be a link so you can go right to that page and register during this webinar for our next webinar. But that'll be a good one not to miss. I also want to just make you aware of a great conference we host every year. It's called Quality Jam. It's a combination of a QASymphony user conference plus a lot of great thought leaders come in, people like Keith Klain, Jeffrey Hammond from Forrester. So there's going to be a lot of great information. It's a 2-day event in April, so check out qualityjam.com for more information. And if you want to win a free ticket, please send an email to marketing@qasymphony.com. We're going to pick one lucky winner who will get a free pass. Quality Jam, a $300 value. And we are doing an early bird pricing right now. So if you do plan on coming to Quality Jam, it's the best time to buy tickets. This is the lowest rate you will get on the tickets to that event. All right, and without further ado, I want to pass it along to our two presenters today. For those of you who've been on webinars before, you probably recognize the mugshot of Ryan Yackel, our senior product engineer. Ryan is in charge of all things product marketing here at QASymphony, and a real expert on the products. And I'm also going to welcome Judy Chung. Judy is not on as many webinars, but is one of our great team members here at QASymphony. She is a product manager on the qTest product, and she is really one of our leading experts in all things testing related to qTest. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Ryan and Judy.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for everyone gathered here today. I am also very grateful that Judy is here. She's one of my favorite people at the QASymphony office, and she can also speak to a lot of things that we've been doing, one on a roadmap perspective of where we're going this year, and also kind of the next year around some of the things we'll cover today. And so we've actually had a major release, this past release, and we've had a major beta release evolving around data parameterization, which we're going to get to. And we also had a little minor release to qTest Manager. So really the three things we'll be talking about today are some enhanced approval workflows that we've actually taken over in qTest Manager, revolving around test case approvals. There's a small time zone enhancement that probably you won't really recognize, but that won't be much of discussion today. And then the main parts we're going to be talking about are our brand new qTest Sessions UI that we just rolled out, and the automation capabilities that were built into that test automation area for sessions. And the last part we'll talk about is our release of qTest TDM that's in beta right now with a lot of our customers that Judy has been talking hand in hand with, and she kind of is the product owner on this new product that we're rolling out. It's in beta, and it will be coming out later on in a future release of revolving test data parameterization.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. I'm really excited to be here, very excited to share with everybody the recent release as well as the features that are coming out ahead for TDM. Just want to point out one distinction here. I know you have the three different products, qTest Manager, qTest Explore, and qTest TDM. I think this shows kind of a new change in direction that we're headed in terms of the branding for each of our products. So when we say qTest Manager, that will be referring to our test case management platform, which we've also been referring to as qTest to be short. So qTest Manager is still the existing product, but we're just using qTest as the overall broad product suite that also encaptures Explore and TDM as well.
Thanks, Judy. That's a very good distinction because I'll probably get caught up in saying qTest, so I'm actually referring to qTest Manager in this demo. Before we get going, one of the things we like to do is have a poll around one of the topics we're talking about today, and the main topic we're talking about today is test automation. And one of the things that we hear from lots of our customers are different challenges that come about in test automation, whether you don't have enough automation engineers or the right automation engineers. There's no way to really streamline your manual to automated processes. You may be testing something legacy in nature like COBOL or really old applications that are really hard to automate. There's also brittle automation scripts, and then also the headache of going through and actually putting together and managing expectations for people that want to have an automation coverage that's 100%. So as you talk through these things, hopefully you're collecting and submitting on what the biggest challenges are for you all in test automation. And it really seems like it's across the board here. We're looking at some of the results that are coming out. And actually, this actually makes sense because automation is one of those areas where you have to have all the pieces put into play correctly, or what you're going to get is something that's half-baked. You're going to get something that is not really sustainable in the long term when you're trying to build out your test automation efforts. And what we'll be presenting today is just one of the areas, one of the ties into your automation testing that where Explore can actually help out and helping manual testers and automated testers actually talk through and actually streamline the manual to automated fashion. So no surprise here that there's all across the board. I know, experiencing it firsthand, there's a lot of challenges with test automation. So let's get into talking about some of the features, first with qTest Manager, and I really highlight the first one, which is just an enhanced workflow for the approvals. So previously, when we actually went through and you're able to set up a test execution, what would happen is if you had a previous version of that test case, what would happen is that if you ran a version that was not the most approved version, it would notify the tester and say, hey, guess what, just to let you know, there's a new approved version of that test case that you're about ready to execute. So do you want to upgrade that test case during test execution, or you want to keep using that old version? And what we've done is, based off of some of the customer feedback that we got from our team, was that they want to also have an awareness of if that latest approved test case also is being worked on. So that's where you can see that, for example, in the first row here, I'm about ready to run version 7 of a test case, but version 12 is available, and also version 12 is being worked on at the same time. So what you're getting at is kind of a 3-level view into the approvals that you can see in the test case versions that are actually going on. So it's just a better visibility into what testing you're actually going to do.
Yep. I think this is a fantastic new feature that will really help provide a comprehensive view, as you said, especially since our testing teams are growing more and more in size, and as we have more customers with larger number of testers involved within each project, making changes to a test case at the same time. I think having a holistic view of not only the latest changes, but maybe the latest approval, and then at whatever version you'd want to manually execute if you want a previous version, I think is going to help paint the full picture.
Yeah, and that just helps out a lot for me too. If I was a tester and I wanted to be aware of, even if I select that approved test case, I want to know if that's also being worked on, because I may want to go talk to that person and just say, hey, you know what, I see you're also working on this approved test case. Should I just wait and kind of talk with you before I go off and execute that? The next thing is based off of some feedback we have lots of different global teams that are out there. They wanted an easier way to actually select the time zone based off the country that they're aware of. So as you can see here, as soon as I select them in the United States, I'll have options based off of that country. So just a quick update on selecting the time zone. Just makes it a lot easier for you to select that. So on to some of the major things that we released, and this is really the new and improved qTest Sessions UI. Before, you may have seen in the tab view that there was a tab actually called Sessions. And what we've done, we've actually moved that over into a 9-box functionality, which I'll actually demonstrate kind of later on here in the demo. But with the new Sessions UI, you're actually getting a lot more data in this UI, but with an updated look as well. So one of the things you'll see is that you'll have the ability to filter test sessions on the left side and save those in a lot easier way than you had before versus the data query that was previously there. Everything that you're seeing here is actually based in AngularJS, which is kind of a sneak peek for some of the other stuff we'll be talking about today around TDM and kind of the changing of the UI that we're going to slowly roll out to our customer base with this rapid response Angular-based UI. And then what you're also seeing is if this is a landing section for qTest Sessions, you're seeing things like, hey, can I quickly see, based off of what I've planned versus the actual, kind of what that looks like in a high-level view. You can see that in track your test sessions. And then what you're also able to do is look at a roll-up of all the test cases and bugs that were created out of these particular test sessions. The other section that you would move on to, if I were to say, you know what, okay, I see this as a list view, and now when I go and drill into it, again, a new Angular-based UI view that you're seeing here. We've cleaned up the annotation options. It's a lot cleaner for you to make annotations actually on your screen. And then we're also enhancing some of the ways to export your data. So previously, it was exporting in HTML. You've got options to do that in PDF now. You've got the option to do that in Word. So cleaning up the way to get data out of qTest Sessions. And then what we'll be demoing later on today is, of course, that automation script capabilities for Selenium and Protractor out of the box after that test session has been complete. So new look, new cleanup of the UI for that.
Yep, I think that this new editor as well as the sessions list view is really exciting just because it's a new UI. It's the same functionality, just quicker response, as you said, Ryan, and I think this is a good preview of the UI revamp that we're embarking on for the overall qTest suite. Obviously, TDM and sessions, they're already done. TDM will be launched with the new UI. The qTest will be a larger, more comprehensive plan since there are so many more pages. So we'll be starting that later in the next release as well as early 2017, and we're interested in getting customer feedback for that as well. So really interested to hear what you guys think about the new Sessions UI as well as TDM once it comes out. So please feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to reach out to support at QASymphony. We're really looking forward to getting your input.
Yeah, who doesn't love a new, fresh UI? It's kind of like putting on a brand new suit, which I bought tonight for an event we're going to, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, everyone loves having a new UI on top of great functionality, and that's where the last part comes in, where in order to actually build out the UI of Sessions and make it clean and make it to where it's easily accessible for all of our users, we also wanted to build in this automation script generation capability. So with that added functionality of the UI, the new look of the UI, we've got the ability to, after you're done with your test session, if you're testing on web, you can easily switch between a plugin that would say, yeah, I want to turn this into a protractor script or a Java Selenium-based script or a C# Selenium-based script. And what that does is allows the manual tester to actually communicate with an automator or even take that themselves. And then it starts that first go about, okay, how do I get my manual test moved into an automated fashion? So we're automatically building out this script for you. You can easily download and copy this into your IDE and then actually build that into your continuous testing pipeline if that becomes something that you're doing currently. You'll also notice you've got the way to ability to edit certain values and target values. So if I collected something like the name object on the actual based off of the command that I collected, I could change that to the ID, or I could change it to XPath, just depending on what my automation team really wants to see. So it's a starting conversation around, hey, you don't want to build out that automation capabilities. And just so you all know, this automation script generation, since it was one of the most major releases we've had with Explorer, we've kind of seen it as a newer product. It's actually in our qTest Elite package, so those that are on qTest Elite will have this capability. Those that had qTest Explorer with Sessions prior, you all will still get the new UI, but this is something that we reserve this for a higher package. So after we demo this, you want to have conversations with Judy or myself or the success team about this. We're more than happy to talk about that with you.
And one final note on the script generator, that button for the script generator will automatically show up if you are Elite, as Yackel said, but this will only work for any new sessions that are recorded after the release happened. So the release occurred in late October, so if you have any sessions recorded before then, you won't be able to create automated scripts for those sessions, but any sessions recorded afterwards using Web Explorer specifically will show that automated script generator button so that you can then create those scripts.
Yeah, the reason for that is just because we didn't have the plugin functionality beforehand, so we weren't collecting any of that data prior, but now we are. So as you start testing out those web applications, you should start seeing that generate script button show up after any new session has completed. And then the last part before we actually get into some demos is we've got, as I mentioned earlier, this new beta release of test run parameterization. And for those that are actually going through and having to rerun tests over and over again with different data associated with that, this is where it's going to be helpful for you to have the test data management section active and on when it actually gets released. Because what you're able to do is store all the data that you have within all the different tests you want to execute, and then you can share these parameters into different projects, and then what you can do is say, okay, for this test case, I want to create 5 different test runs with these different parameters associated with that. So instead of having to go back through and actually enter in the data each time you rerun it, the data will automatically be pre-populated when you actually go through and execute that. So this is a very much a requested feature that we've gotten, and we're rolling that out with qTest TDM and beta, and it will be coming out for GA soon. And then again, you'll notice as we go through the demo, the more Angular-based UI that's going to be a part of that.
Yep, just a couple points here before we dive into more of the details for TDM. I know that a lot of users have asked for this feature in the past, and until now, the workaround that we suggested was either to enter the test data into a separate field, like the description field of the overall test case, to either enter in the test data at the test step level, just in plain text, or to create a separate, combo box type of field on the test case as well. So as we're showing the new parameter features and providing this sneak preview, I think it will be good to keep in mind, how are we adjusting for parameters today? What was the overall workaround that my organization was incorporating? And then how do we think about a transition path to then include and incorporate the actual parameter feature once it's released at the end of this month?
Cool. Awesome. All right, so let's get into a demo of the features here. I'm going to start up a screen share. Let me go ahead and do that. All righty, let me actually adjust this real quick here. I know that. Okay.
Ryan, while you're getting that set up, let's jump to one of the questions. Are these features available on-premise for on-premise customers at this time?
No, they are not available for on-premise customers just yet. They'll be rolled into the latest on-premise package that will be coming out later this year.
Yep, so the new Sessions UI will be included in the next on-premise release, which is in the next week or so. The new TDM feature, since it's not available on the cloud yet, it'll be available on the cloud end of November, so it will be available on-premise in the January on-premise release.
And in general, when we roll out a new release, how long does it then take to roll it out from cloud to on-premise?
Yeah, that's a good question. So our on-demand releases are normally 5 weeks apart, and then every 3 of those on-demand releases is how we time an on-premise release. So on-premise releases are usually spaced out about 15 weeks, or we've experienced kind of a quarterly basis.
Cool. Great. All right, so we're back into qTest, and we'll briefly talk about the 2 qTest Manager features. The first one was, again, if I go through and I grab a execution that I know, let me actually go ahead and play this. I think we should be good now. When I actually go to say, okay, you know what, I want to go ahead and grab some test runs to execute, everyone knows that this red text here indicates that what's going to happen is that you've got a new version of the test case. So when I select those and click Run, the new feature that will happen is that we'll actually open up the 3 columns now. So I've got visibility into, on the row below here, that I'm on version 10. Version 12 is actually the latest version, and actually version 12 is being worked on. So I can then either approve this all the way to version 12, I can go and I can talk with somebody, and if I have approval rights, I can actually push this all the way to version 13 if I wanted to. So it's a way to start the conversation and make sure people aren't executing tests that are in that transition phase, in that lull phase between approvals. So qTest Sessions is available, and what you'll notice is that it's available in the top right corner along with qTest Insights. So this 9 box that you're seeing here, we're moving stuff with applications, we're moving those into an easy way to actually get back and forth between those applications, and we'll be rolling out with the new UI a new way as well to kind of navigate. And what we're doing is we're storing things like qTest Insights for BI Analytics and also qTest Sessions in that 9-box fashion. Similar to if anyone's used something like Google Apps, you've got a way to go and access your Gmail, you've got ways to go and access your Drive or your Google Sheets. It's going to work that same way to get back and forth between applications pretty rapidly. So this is the new Sessions UI, and you'll notice on the left side over here, this is where you can look at any save filters you've had in the past, whether they're based off of your team queries and also based off of your own queries you've created. And then you can also start building out your own filters here below. And one of the newer cooler features is that you can actually, when you go and look at people who are you want to search by, they'll actually have their user profile. So you can see I've got a bunch of people, or my mugshot here is actually listed on the right side over there. So you can see a lot of me in this demo. But if I were to select different people, then it'll show up their user profile, just adding a little bit more of a personal touch to that. We're also giving the ability to search based off of tagging. So we've got the ability to look at, okay, I want to grab tests that I tagged as a UI session, and I want to filter by that, right? Or I can search by no filters at all. So you've got the ability to insert tags, which was another feature people were asking about when they're going through, they're building out their test sessions. They want to be able to do that. In the actual grid, you can customize the grid in the top right corner. So if I want to switch any of the columns that I want, that's available here. And then, of course, if I need to add a session or configure any of the Explorer settings, that's listed in the Sessions tab now. So previously, it was in the QTest Manager section, but we've moved the settings more to the application of where it should live. So any Explorer settings, that'll be actually controlled in the QTest Sessions settings area.
Yep. Just want to point out one distinct part of this view. We're trying to maximize the amount of space in this grid. So notice that the user information, in this case your username, Ryan Yackel, is instead replaced by the avatar. So if you guys don't have an avatar in qTest already, I think it will be good to think about what sort of pictures to include in here so that your team can easily identify the sessions that were created or executed by you.
Yeah, and everyone probably has like a LinkedIn profile day with some professional photographers and maybe go out, get some nice screenshots,
or take a good old selfie.
Or take a good old selfie and get your awesome face up on the QTest Manager platform there. All right, so now let's actually let's dive into what the new view would look like. So if I click on review details, this is going to give me a bigger area for me to do things like entering things like a test session charter, or if I want to look at the environment details or the test objectives, things like that. We've actually added in more fields for you to add in kind of what activities you're going to be doing, except for, instead of just a summary or description. So those that are actually performing session-based type testing, this is a great way to enter in your charter, enter in your test objectives, and then of course, Explorer is going to record the session breakdown time. It's going to record applications you tested against, the environments, and also any objects you've created, like defects you've submitted over into Jira, or test cases that you've submitted back over into Manager. So you'll be able, from this view, to see more data around that test session and talk more with your teams around that test session. The review button over here is where you're dumped into the screen capture view that you all should be aware of. So looking at all the screens on the left side over here as I'm going through these screens, as I switch through these, you can actually see the screen change on the main view here. And if I want to, I can go behind these test cases to this properties area, and the properties area shows me that same data that we were just looking at. So I can look at any tags that I have against this test case. I can look at, okay, what was my environment details? We're putting things in more of a one-page view now to get back and forth between your areas of testing, rather than having to go back and forth between different sections of the application. So that's why we have different navigations up at the top here. And then, of course, the same annotations you all love by blurring things out, needing to highlight different areas of the application that are, let's say, risky or need to be created defects against. That's available for you to do as well. And we add more annotations, more texting, more font types, more just different ways to actually highlight kind of what's going on in your actual test session. Up at the top, you've also got the ability to submit defects again. So this UI here, if I wanted to quickly say, okay, I want to grab these screens and pump them over into Jira, I can do that. I can also submit a test case back over into QTest Manager, and you can actually choose where it's going to go as well. So if you want to say, okay, I want to say that this test case is now going to go over into a new module in QTest, I can do that by just dropping in there. I can also update an existing test case with the screen captures, with the steps, that you're actually managing over in QTest Manager. So the same functionality for submitting a defect, for creating test cases, the same with this new Sessions UI. And what we're also doing is giving you more exporting capabilities. So you don't have to worry about exporting it to HTML, saving it as Word, or kind of doing some weird configurations around that. If you need to get into PDF format, we'll do that automatically for you. That was a highly requested feature because you can still do that with QTest Explorer desktop version, but we've extended that functionality to the Session Manager. And then if you've ran your Explorer session, then this script generation button right here is where you would actually see all of the screens that were collected and then also the data behind that. So I haven't selected any plugin yet. That's why nothing is actually showing up here. But if I were to select, let's say, Selenium Java, what then occurs is that it'll pump out that automation code that was recorded in the background. If I'm using Protractor, I can grab that and select that. So it's an easy way for you to say, okay, I want to have this plugin, I want to quickly change the plugin, and what it'll do is it'll automatically change the code below for that within what you're seeing here. For this Java Selenium, I'll just hang out here for a little bit, but for example, if I wanted to scroll down, I can see the meat of the application, or the meat of the testing that I was doing. I was clicking on certain things like an ID labeled tab visual heat maps. That actually will tell us that we were clicking on that heat map image that was referring to QTest Insights on QASymphony.com. So the clicks here, the IDs out beside it, that will tell you kind of what objects you're interacting with. And if I wanted to change what I actually clicked on based off the command, if I want to say, you know what, I don't want to grab the ID, I want to grab the name, when I select that, I can give it a name, or what I can do is select other operators as well. So if I want to look at the XPath, it's behind that. So this will all depend upon what objects you can pull back. If you can pull back something that's higher up the DOM, as people talk about, that's built out in a web page, that's better for you to do. If you can't do that, then you're going to have to go deeper in to selecting that. So this is just a great way to, one, say, okay, I've got this automation script. Now I can manipulate it further. I can modify it further to put in things like arrays. I can put in loops. I can put in more logic in there that's not such a linear automation script. But what occurs is that if you're in a situation where you've got an automation team that's taking these manual tests and automating them, then as in a person that's using QTest Explorer, what you're able to do is say, okay, I really want to really add to this conversation about what should be automated and what shouldn't be automated. And by creating this Explorer test session, you're able to then not just walk over to an automator or automate it yourself, having to do additional recordings. You can now have an actual automation code behind it where you can download it, copy it, move it over into an ID of your choice.
Yep. We're super excited about getting this new feature put out, and really appreciate the feedback from customers that have led us to this point. I just want to point out that the intention for this feature is to make it as plug and play as possible, so that you can manipulate the data within here depending on what would make most sense to your automated framework. But if there are additional frameworks that would be helpful for your organization outside of Selenium and Protractor, please let us know. This is simply the first iteration of this feature, and we want to make sure that it's readily accessible and valuable to the wider audience. So definitely interested and open to hearing the demand from our users.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that's, in a nutshell, that is our new QTest Sessions UI. That's our new automation script generation capability. I was showing at the end here a video that kind of walks through an entire end-to-end workflow. Just so you all know, is I actually recorded it using our Web Explorer plugin that's accessible up at the top here if you download Web Explorer. So literally all you have to do is kind of business as normal with using Web Explorer on Chrome. You would just update your Chrome plugin and run it, and then at the end you would see that automation scripts button that's available for you.
Yep, and what I found is that Web Explorer, sometimes depending on your browser setting, updates automatically, so it actually did that for me. So that's one of the real cool benefits, I think, of using the web version of Explorer.
All right, so we talked about QTest Manager, some of the workflow capabilities there. We showed off the brand new session-based UI. We showed off the automation script generator, and now what we're doing is it's kind of going into more of a dev environment here, and we're going to be talking about qTest TDM, which is in beta right now. qTest TDM, it will be accessible the same way that Sessions is. So right now it's in this tab, but when we actually deploy it out into production, you'll control it and see it based off that same 9-box with insights and with Sessions, and now it'll be qTest TDM. I'm actually going to go launch it right here. So when I launch TDM, you'll notice you've got two different areas in the application. You've got parameters and you've got data sets. So with parameters, what you'll notice is that anything that's active will display in green. Anything that is yellow, you're going to display as inactive. So if I quickly want to look at all the active data or parameters that I'm inserting data into, I can switch between these pretty rapidly and would show those. And if I want to drill into behind these particular parameters that are going to be driving my test run steps, all I have to do is click into one of these parameters and it'll show all the data that was collected down below. So I've actually inserted a bunch of usernames based off of Gina Kowalik and my name. So you can see Ryan Yackel 01, Ryan Yackel 02, and so on. So if I need to rerun that same test over and over again and have different users' names pass in, this would be helpful if you're using something like manager profiles or end user profiles or security profiles. Having to have these user profiles all in one location, it makes it easier for you to then say, okay, now insert this user profile into this test step when I go actually run it.
Yep, I think this is super useful, especially when you have to execute the same test across these different data types, and being able to have a more formal way of controlling which parameter values or data sets get tested.
Yeah, and the cool thing about TDM too is that you can also control parameters based off of different projects. And so I've got 4 projects here listed out, and I've got 5 including the sample project. If I wanted to allow this parameter to be accessible into different projects, I can easily do that. So sometimes with other test case management tools is that parameters are only available within one project. This allows you to, if you've got multiple spread out team members all looking at maybe the same set of data, you can actually pull that data into different projects and actually run with that.
Yep, and the first iteration of TDM, we're releasing this with very loose permissions, which means that the ability to generate a parameter is accessible by all users of qTest. So you're technically allowed to go into TDM, create as many parameters as you wish, but the projects that the parameters can be added to are limited to the projects that the user has access to. So if I have access to these 5 projects, I can add this parameter for use in those 5 projects and bring them into any test cases in those projects. But if there's, let's say, a 6th project that I don't have access to, I'm not able to add it to that project or create a test case with that parameter in that project. In that scenario, you would need, another user that actually has access to that project to go in here and simply add that project and add the parameter into a test case in that project. Yeah, so with the parameter here, you can see, before we move on to data sets, I think that it's also really interesting, kind of like in the parameter itself, when you click into it, how you can see the projects that it has access to. If you swipe over to the test case view, you'll also see a list of all of the test cases that reference that parameter. If you want to, if you're in here making changes and want to see what test cases may be impacted by the changes that you're adding. And then also with data sets is a combination of different parameters together. So what we allow you to do is specify the exact parameters and the exact values that need to be tested together. If, let's say, there's a certain parameter value that takes precedence over another, or let's say there's a certain combination that will always need to be tested but other data sets don't, we can specify that here. And in terms of usability, we try to create as many keyboard shortcuts as possible. So by clicking into the tab or clicking into the cell and clicking on tab and enter. We're trying to make this as user-friendly as possible.
Cool. Thank you, Judy. Let me actually do what Judy just mentioned, which is talking about, okay, well, how do you assign your test cases then to these parameters? And it's actually really easy. So in our beta side here, I'm going to go to a test case, and I'll go to this manage contacts area. And what I'll do is I'll actually just create a brand new test case. So when I click brand new test case here, down below, when I enter my steps here, there's some things you want to be aware of. So if I wanted to base off that same thing we talked about earlier, which was around usernames, if I said, okay, I want to log in as, and then I want to insert a parameter here, what I would do is I would use this $ here, and what it would do is then pull up in, as I type, all the parameters that are based off of that search. So when I typed in P, it was recognizing, okay, you've got portal month parameters, you've got portal usernames, you've got transportations. So this is an easy way for us to say, okay, yeah, I want to use this particular parameter at this area of my test run step.
Yep. And the keyboard shortcut here to trigger the parameter selection is, in this case, $. We've actually heard some feedback from customers during our beta to say that the $sign may be troublesome since some of these parameters may be financial related data. So we're actually going to change that in time for the release to production. So instead, you'll see the @ symbol as the trigger, similar to Jira.
Got it. All right, so I just created a test case. I didn't enter any expected results here, but I've got 3 different parameters that I've created, right? So in these 3 different parameters, what I want to do is, okay, when I create this, I want to then create data dynamically for this. So when up at the top here, you'll notice that we've actually got a new button that will be displayed. It's called Create Test Run. So previously, when you're creating test runs, they're usually done in test execution. And what we've done is we've brought some of that functionality over into test design, where you can say, okay, I want to create a test run and assign it to a particular test suite. In this case, I'm using this test data suite that's in this test cycle over here. And when I select that, now I'm able to say, okay, for each of these parameters, what do I want to do? Do I want to select particular each parameter and go down the row here? Or I could do this, which is I could randomize the data. So if I want to randomize data, what I could do is, what's going to do is say, okay, you've got 4 unique combinations with these different unique values. And instead of having, it's kind of like the configuration manager. If you all have used test run configurations, it's just a little bit more complex than that. But what it does is we'll say, I have all these combinations. I'll give you an output of that combination down below here. And I can say, okay, you actually I want to have all 4 of those combinations, not just one combination that you're randomizing. So now I've got all my usernames that are here on the left side. I've got all the different days I want them to select, then all the different holidays as well. So we'll see what happens when I log in as a username. I select Wednesday, and then I click Halloween for the holiday. Let's see if that's actually in the system. It may be the Halloween's on a Monday. So we're expecting certain errors to happen based off that. So when I do that, I'm able to then populate this data over into that brand new test suite, and now I've got 4 test runs with new data all associated with them. So when I do that, we'll actually go, I'll actually close this out here, and we'll go and take a look at some of the test runs we just created. So you can see in this test data suite here, the untitled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1, 2, 3, 4, what that's doing is it's showing all the test cases that were titled, untitled, and then all of the parameters that went with that. So if I click into this test run right here, what you'll notice is that at the step level, this indicator that's highlighted in blue is showing the data that's a part of that test run. So now what I'm able to do is when I go and I run these tests, and I insert them, I'll go ahead and click run for these 4 here. I'll go ahead and grab these, and we'll actually do a test pad run so you can actually see the data. Let me turn off this pop blocker here. So I've grabbed my test runs, I've entered them in a test pad, and in the test pad, you're seeing that there's the data being displayed in each of these test runs. So if I switch to another test run, you'll see that now I'm logged in as Ryan Yackel. If I move to the next one, I'm logged in as Ryan Yackel 03. I'm selecting Thursday. The next one is Ryan Yackel 01. I'm selecting a Tuesday, and it's also Christmas, right? So all that data is populated directly into the test run steps so that you can quickly use that data and not have to go back and actually manually insert this data to rerun that same flow of a test case. And I'll actually just go ahead and pass one of these, and we'll go ahead and take a look at that data. All right. So I ran one of the tests here, and then down below you'll notice is that, again, what we put in here is the test data at the test step. You can also put in your expected results and actual results, and we're also logging it at the result level at the step level. So you've got the ability to quickly see data that you've selected into this test run. And if you were to rerun this test run with a different set of data, you'd also be able to see that in the actual execution history for that.
Yep. Just want to point out for those of you who may not particularly be interested in parameterization as a feature, this is a very specific use case. Some people, this feature may be important. For others, it might not be as important in incorporating the test data. But I just want to reiterate Ryan's point that the new Create Test Run button is a workflow change. It's a new workflow to be able to push out a test run from test design, in addition to the old way, which is bringing in a test run from test execution. So even if you are not planning to use parameterization, you still have access to this button, which allows you to create the test run from the test case itself.
Yeah, that's a good point to make there, Judy. So this kind of concludes the full demo of some of the features in QTest Manager. We kind of rolled some out for QTest sessions and the automation script generator, and then also with QTest TDM. So I'm going to stop my screen share here, and we're going to go back to addressing some of the questions you may all have had during this webinar, and we'll go to questions now.
All right, great guys. Really good overview. Had a lot of questions coming in during the session, so we'll get to as many as we can. There are a lot of questions, so this will be great. We'll try to knock these out so we can end by the top of the hour. All right, so the first question: would the automation script generation be best suited for web applications? What do you think about that?
Yeah, so it is currently rolled out to only support web applications right now. We are going to be rolling out a version, and again, with the future of our roadmap, more different types of technology for the support. The first one would probably be Appium support. That's one that we're looking into. Kind of goes along with the move we're seeing for people embracing Selenium and Appium for open source automation for web and mobile. So you're correct to assume that it'd be geared more for web, specifically for Selenium and Protractor. There is a capability to create your own plugin. That's kind of in beta right now as well, that we're kind of testing with some of our customers, that would allow you to create your own plugin that then would be able to have Explorer actually record that data across your application.
Yep, so that creating your own plugin is still limited to any session recording off of Web Explorer, so it's any application access through your browser. If you guys are interested in using the automated script generator, particularly for a desktop application, let's say, we're still in the process of trying to gather information from our customers to understand what sort of desktop automated testing tools are being used, so that once we have the demand, we can build out the feature for desktop applications. So please send that over to us so that we can use that when planning the roadmap for the script generator.
Great. Next question. Will qTest provide any functionality to update or tweak generated automation scripts, or will the user need to perform all edits in a different application?
So I may not particularly understand the exact question, I'll just kind of reiterate what qTest Sessions does. So at the end of your actual particular session that you have, you can edit that script however you'd like within the session editor. So as I was talking about earlier, you've got the ability on the left side of the editor to change the targets and the values that those commands are capturing based off of Web Explorer, the data it's collecting, and you can change that, and then that would be able to be exported and pushed over into your IDE. You could also edit it further inside the Session Manager. It just kind of depends on if you want to make large-scale changes or if you want to just make small changes like those targets and values.
Great. Next question. Is there a way to incorporate SQL Oracle query to the qTest generated script and use the query data either as data source or for data validation?
That is something we're kind of taking a look at. We've heard a lot of questions around SQL validation. I know Judy's had a lot of, we had a large customer do this data for qTest Explorer script generation. That was one of the things they brought up. Right now, that's not it currently in the capabilities of qTest Explorer in Sessions, but it's something we'll take into consideration.
Right, and I'll just say, as Judy said before, if you have feature requests on our support site, support.QASymphony.com, we do have a suggest a feature button that lets you kind of go in and give us your wish list, and you know, we do look at those very closely and take those very seriously, and our customers are sometimes surprised that we are able to accommodate a lot of those feature requests. So I encourage you to go to the support site, and if you have a feature request, to enter it there. Okay, next question. From qTest Sessions, is there an easy way to switch back and forth to qTest Manager?
Yeah, so right now, when you have qTest Sessions, it's actually going to open up a new window. So the manager is going to stay open. So technically, you could just go back into the tab that you had. People like that user experience better because what happens if you just were to click on qTest Sessions and you were to basically just change the URL and kind of merge that into the same window, then if you're doing something on qTest Manager, it would just kind of go away. And so we've given you the ability to open up a new window there right away so that you keep qTest Manager in one tab, qTest Sessions in another tab, and then nothing's lost there. And then also, as we're going through and building out that 9 box, we'll be able to add qTest Manager as an option as well to get back into if you're from qTest Sessions. So I think it's a very similar user experience where somebody's using like Google Apps that allows you to have multiple windows open to do things.
Great. Just remind people one more time, a couple questions came in. Where do you go to access the script generator?
Yeah, so the script generator, and I can actually show that real quick. I'll go ahead and share my screen. So the first part would be to go to Sessions. So Sessions is in the top right corner of qTest Manager. So when I go over here and I click on qTest Sessions, if I've ran a Web Explorer session, the updated plugin version, I believe it needs to be, I can look here, I believe it needs to be 1.1.5 or 4, I believe. But it needs to have the most up-to-date plugin that you're having here. And then when you complete that session, if you click on the action icon here and click Review, then what you'll notice is that this script generator button will be in the top right corner. So again, as Judy talked about, this is only going to be there if you've, going forward, if you've got Web Explorer, you've got the most up-to-date version, and you're on our qTest Elite package. That's another thing to keep aware of. And this is a new script. It's not something you did, a year ago with Web Explorer and you're expecting it to show up. It's only for net new automation or session scripts.
Right. So you have to be on the Elite package to get this specific feature, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to be on the Elite package for qTest Insights. For qTest TDM, that's going to be available for qTest Premium and Elite. Elite customers specifically the parameterization part. That's going to be available for Premium and Elite. And then we had a previous webinar about qTest Insights. That's only available for our Elite customers.
Okay. Question around switching between resolutions and testing UI with different resolutions. Does this support that?
Yeah, so Web Explorer is going to record on anything that you have open depending on whatever resolution it is. So it's going to record whether you're on a, let's say, a Retina Mac computer or a Windows desktop or application on a Windows PC. With it collecting the display about what's actually behind that, if you're clicking on things and you're clicking on objects that have a higher resolution, it's going to pull back the plug-in data around Protractor, around Java, around C# for Selenium. So what we're really trying to get at is like, okay, you want to be able to, one, record the code that's behind that in a way that you can then go communicate with your automation team or talk with your automator, or if you're even the automator yourself, you've got all these objects now coupled with all these screen captures that you've recorded manually that help out with then facilitating an automation test case to run. So you should be able to do that. And there shouldn't be any limitations with capturing high-resolution screens. I would just make sure that what you're capturing is going to be pulling back objects that are coded in your application.
Okay, so the automation tools today, Selenium, correct? What's coming in the future? What other automation tools are we looking to integrate with?
I said earlier, Appium is one of the first ones that we're going to be looking at. We're really looking into one is building out more plugins for Selenium. That's kind of one of the main tools that we're seeing people use, and of course, I think everyone knows that. Protractor it's kind of like a Selenium hybrid, right? It's a Protractor kind of uses WebDriver to do a lot of the testing. It's based in AngularJS, so we were able to do that one relatively quickly. So we've got some other ones kind of thinking about, but outside of those, I can't really comment on any exact other ones to take a look at.
Great. A question around TDM. Can you import TDM data from Excel?
That will be a feature that will be available, yes. I didn't show that, but that is something you'll be able to do. So you'll be able to have an Excel spreadsheet, have the columns, have all the data there collected for you and ready to go. I know we're coming up on time here. I did want to just show you all one thing through the screen share since it's open. The product management team and our support team really do a fine job at creating different training materials for you all. If you go up in the top right corner of QASymphony, this training section over here, you'll notice that you've got all of our products here. TDM will be coming later on, but with qTest Explorer, you all can look at an automation script video that was created that basically walks through everything that was talked about today. So this qTest sessions and automation playlist here, this will actually talk through all of the things we talked about today around qTest sessions, and it'll also point you to a lot of support capabilities as well on our support site that Judy mentioned, and of course we're also looking to hear kind of your feedback on that.
Great, great. Well, we're almost at the top of the hour. I want to remind everyone a survey is going to pop up right when we end this webinar. We have a lot of questions we did not get to. Apologize for that. We will post a blog that answers as many questions as we can. So keep an eye out for that, and also look out for the on-demand recording. That should be sent to you shortly after the webinar ends. Again, Ryan, Judy, thank you guys. Thank everyone for coming out today and learning about the new qTest 8.1, and we'll see you on the next webinar. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.